Golden child brother got my fiancée pregnant, so my family abandoned me. After 5 years of no contact, he's in a coma, and my mother demand I step up as replacement father for his child. 5 years ago, just 1 month before my 30th birthday, I was set to marry my fiancée. It was then I discovered she had been involved with my brother. The only reason they came clean was her pregnancy. She wanted to keep the baby. My former fiancée, Karen, 30, and my brother, Chris, 33, had apparently been seeing each other since Karen and I got engaged. Karen and I had been together since our junior year of high school, continuing through college. Engagement felt like the natural progression given our long history. Yet, after we got engaged, she chose to cheat on me with my brother. This betrayal came to light because, days after our engagement, my brother admitted his long-held feelings for her. He felt compelled to tell her before she married, and he could no longer express himself. Suddenly, she realized she had also developed feelings for him over time. Apparently, they had even exchanged flirtatious remarks behind my back at family gatherings. But her uncertainty about him kept her with me. I learned all of this 5 years ago, a few months before the wedding. They sat me down with my parents and announced their plans to be together. Karen could no longer marry me because she was in love with Chris, and they were expecting a child. I was distraught that day, almost refusing to believe it. I told Karen I wanted her to come home with me and in whatever relationship she had with Chris. My mother, however, made it clear that wouldn't happen. Chris and Karen would be together, and I simply had to accept it, as it was their decision. I couldn't comprehend my mother supporting this. At least my father had the decency to look ashamed and tried to comfort me. But my mother openly endorsed it, even telling me to keep my thoughts to myself because Karen was pregnant, and I had no right to upset her during such a delicate time. My mother was obsessed with the idea of a grandchild and seemed oblivious to my pain, fighting me fiercely to justify their actions. After that confrontation, Karen moved in with my family because her own parents disowned her upon hearing the truth. The wedding was obviously canceled, with my parents covering the costs, so I didn't have to worry about that. However, I became estranged from the family because I refused to speak to them, resulting in zero contact for the past 5 years. My father was the only one who tried to reach out, but I wasn't interested in speaking with him, so there's been complete silence from their side since I cut ties. It took me a long time to heal from what happened. Karen and I had been together for so long, and I truly loved her. Therapy was crucial in helping me cope, and even now, I wouldn't say I'm entirely over it, but I'm managing. The rest of the family kept in touch, though. I learned from them that she had a son with my brother. A month after his birth, a paternity test confirmed he was my brother's child, not mine, so there was no further need for contact. They eventually married and have been together for the past 5 years. I had assumed everything was going well for them. But then, about a week ago, my mother called me unexpectedly. It took me by surprise, as she had been an unhealthy advocate for Karen and Chris. Out of sheer curiosity, I called her back after she emailed me, saying she needed to speak urgently. When I called, she tearfully shared some terrible news. My brother had been in a very serious accident. It was a hit and run, and the impact left him in a coma, with no indication of how long recovery would take. This happened last week, and just 3 days after doctors said his condition was critical, my mother called to inform me. At first, I thought she would ask me to visit him and be there for the family, which I would have been prepared to do. Despite everything, I believe this is a significant event, and it would have been a reasonable expectation. I didn't want to abandon someone in such a dire state. But then my mother took an entirely different turn, stating she wanted me to be there for Karen and my nephew. I didn't understand what she meant. She then clarified that she now expected me to step up and fill my brother's shoes. When I asked her to elaborate, she explained that since Chris was essentially out of the picture, I needed to support Karen and her child in every possible way. She didn't just mean financially. She actually expected me to move in with them too, care for them. She claimed she would have taken them in herself, but she was getting older and it would be too much work. That's why she was calling me and expected a decision right then and there. I obviously lost my temper. For 5 years, she hadn't spoken to me, and now, her first communication was to demand something so monumental. I could understand Karen and her son were alone and needed support, but that support should come from their immediate family, not me. Someone she had betrayed and never even bothered to apologize to. So, I immediately told my mother I wouldn't do any such thing and that she was foolish to even expect me to agree. She started arguing, but I had no time to waste. I was already furious and didn't want my mood further ruined by talking to her. So I hung up and blocked her again. I tried to go about my day as usual, but I couldn't stop thinking about what Chris and Karen were enduring. I truly felt bad for them. But I obviously wasn't going to do what my mother asked and take my brother's place in their family. That was just bizarre. He was still alive, just in a coma. It wasn't like he had passed away, yet she was acting as if he was gone. I felt very uneasy about the whole situation. So later that day, I decided to call my father instead, assuming he would be more rational than my mother. Speaking to him after 5 years of no contact was very awkward, but after some small talk, I asked him about Chris's condition. He said things weren't looking good. Then I told him about my earlier conversation with my mother, expecting him to offer some reasonable perspective. Instead, he also said my mother was right to expect that of me. This genuinely surprised me, as my dad was usually the more level-headed parent. And now, even he was saying such strange things. When I asked if he truly meant it, he affirmed it, stating that Karen and I had a past, and I was still family regardless of our relationship for the past 5 years. Ultimately, I was blood, and if they could count on anyone to step up for the family, it should be me. He concluded that my mother's expectations weren't unreasonable. That really threw me for a loop, and right now, I honestly have no idea what to do. For the past week, I've avoided speaking to anyone from my family, even my other relatives, because I'm afraid someone will bring this up, forcing me to explain my decisions. I also feel somewhat like the bad guy for refusing to help my family, knowing they truly need me, if not financially, then at least emotionally. I honestly have no clue what to do. I know what my mother is asking is really odd and irrational, but at the same time, I feel bad about outright rejecting it. I haven't even gone to the hospital to see my brother because the whole situation feels so strange. I also haven't been able to talk to any of my friends about this, as it's all so personal. They know about my family situation since the wedding was called off, but this feels even stranger. That's why I'm posting this on Reddit. I truly believe I need some objective opinions on what I should do. Whether it's my friends or family, everyone will have some sort of biased opinion. I desperately need advice because I think I'll lose my mind if I don't find an acceptable solution soon. I honestly feel like I'm returning to that dark period of my life where I constantly thought about Karen and Chris right after discovering her infidelity. That was a really dark time, and I don't want to go back there, as it took a lot for me to get out of it. So please, whatever anyone has to say, no matter how harsh, just tell me so I can at least distract myself. Am I wrong for refusing to see my family and step up for them after my brother's accident? Update 1. Hey everyone, I decided not to see my family for now. It's truly overwhelming. I hadn't even realized how severe my anxiety had become this past week just because of what my parents were saying. But I'm back on my anti-anxiety medication and trying to cope with everything. Many people have shown me love and support in the comments of my original post, and even reached out privately in my direct messages to let me know they're there for me and that I'm not alone, which I'm incredibly grateful for. So thank you so much for that. I've also spoken to a couple of my close friends and confided in them about what's going on, because I truly don't think I can handle all of this by myself. They've also told me I can talk to them whenever I need to just to get it all off my chest. They've also affirmed that my decision not to meet them right now is the correct one, as it's the best choice I can make for myself at this moment. I have to put myself first, regardless of what anyone else is going through. Truth be told, I don't really think I need to be there for them emotionally either. They have each other. They can deal with this on their own. I was the one who had absolutely no one from my immediate family there for me after the wedding was canceled and I found out I'd been cheated on. My own parents turned against me and chose my brother, even though he was the one in the wrong and should have been the one alienated from the family. But anyway, that's all in the past, and I'm trying to move on from that. I won't be able to do that successfully if I go back to them again. So I've blocked all of them once more, and I'm sticking to my decision of no contact. I'm truly sorry about what happened to my brother, and I sincerely hope he recovers soon, because no matter what he's done, I can't be the kind of person who wishes ill upon anyone. So I hope things work out for them, but I'm out of here. I'm just going to focus on my own mental health now, and I'm considering going back to therapy because of how I've dealt with this and how these things my parents said got under my skin. I really think I need to speak to a professional because I don't believe I'm handling all of this as well as I thought I was, and all those old feelings are resurfacing. So I'm just going to look out for myself now. Update 2, so I heard from a few relatives that my brother's condition remains critical and isn't showing any signs of improvement. It's been almost 2 weeks, and he's still in the hospital. Things are very difficult for the family, and I feel for them, but there's not much I can do. Everyone who knows my family has visited my brother in the hospital at least once in the past 2 weeks to offer their condolences for the terrible accident, except for me. I would have done that. But then I also learned from my relatives that my parents have been bad-mouthing me to anyone who visits, making me out to be the villain. They're apparently telling everyone they asked me to visit and be there for the family, but I refused and accused me of saying things like this was karma for screwing me over 5 years ago and that my brother deserved this. For the record, I obviously didn't say anything of the sort. Some of them contacted me to confirm if this was true because it didn't sound like something I would say, as I'm generally a kind person. When they asked me, I obviously told them I hadn't said those things and that my parents were fabricating stories to portray me as a terrible person, probably to elicit a reaction from me or just because that's the kind of people my parents are. I was just really disappointed that they were saying such things about me and fabricating stories just to paint me as a bad guy, especially after already having messed up my life once. I'm just lucky my relatives asked me about it, because if they had just chosen to believe my parents, I don't think anyone in the family would be speaking to me at this point either. For the past 5 years, I hadn't spoken to my parents, but the rest of my family, my aunts, uncles, and of course my cousins, had all been there for me. I really didn't want to lose that, and I guess my parents couldn't stand it, so they decided to try and ruin that for me as well. I just don't understand why they dislike me so much. I've literally never done anything to them. My brother and I have never been particularly close, and my parents have always favored him right from our childhood. But this seems unnecessary and excessive. Update 3 Hi. So I posted an update 2 days ago, and today my mother decided to reach out to me again. I had blocked them everywhere, so she had no option but to visit me to talk. When I came home from work, she was already there, waiting for me. Honestly, I didn't even feel like talking to her because I was so exhausted from work already. I almost decided to get back into the car, but then she spotted me, and I had to go and speak to her. I had no intention of letting her into my house, because it would be very difficult to get rid of her, so I decided to talk to her in the front yard, which proved to be quite bad for me since eventually, she just started yelling at me, and that attracted the attention of the neighbors as well. The conversation started normally enough. She just made some small talk with me, and I had to answer her politely. But then I couldn't help myself, and I ended up asking her why she had been telling people made-up nonsense about me just to portray me as a bad guy. I told her it wasn't fair to me because I had never wished anything bad to happen to my family, even after they had treated me like this, and I honestly just wanted to move on with my life. But they were making even that really hard for me. I had been keeping these feelings to myself for a very long time, so when I saw her, it just came out of me, and I couldn't help myself. In the end, I just told her that after everything that had happened, it was very difficult for me to think of them as family because they had never treated me like that, and I was very disappointed by their behavior. So whatever it was she had come to talk to me about could be done later because I just came back home from work, and I was really not in the mood to fight or talk to anyone about anything that was too emotionally exhausting. She had been hearing me out calmly up until that point, but when I told her I didn't want to speak to her at that moment, she got really upset and said that she was just here to apologize for the very same things I had mentioned. She said that she and my father hadn't been thinking straight. They had been pretty annoyed by my initial response because I had refused to step up for my family and even visit my brother while he was in the hospital. But then they had realized that they hadn't exactly treated me well in the past 5 years, and that I was obviously very upset about that even now, and that's why I wasn't visiting. She had come here to talk to me and try to sort things out between us because she felt that at this time, the family should stick together just for the sake of emotional stability. But after I had told her I didn't want to speak to her, she changed her mind and decided she was going to yell at me instead. She told me that apparently I should just be grateful that I still even have a family, because after the way I had reacted when I heard of my brother's accident, she had half a mind to cut me off and make sure the rest of my relatives also stopped speaking to me permanently. I didn't understand what she was talking about, so she explained that apparently she believed my reaction hadn't been sad enough when I had learned of my brother's accident. I didn't even know what she had expected me to do. She said she had thought that when I had been told of my brother's accident, she had expected me to at least show some emotion, but I had just sounded very indifferent on the phone call. Obviously, no matter what our personal relations are, some news like that was definitely going to affect me, and it really has, as I had mentioned earlier. I do not wish it upon anyone, and that includes my family, in spite of our personal relationships. So I was definitely upset when I heard about his accident. Maybe that hadn't come through on the phone call because she couldn't see my face, but her reasons were just completely baseless and illogical. She even went on to say that the fact that I hadn't been there for Karen and my nephew and stepped up for them in my brother's place just showed how little I cared for the family. She was just making things up yet again to justify how they were acting, and I really think my parents have started to lose their minds because these things are completely weird and unnecessary. Anyway, after she started yelling at me, I lost even more interest in speaking to her, and I just decided to get inside my house and ask her to leave. So after some time, I unlocked the door to my house and went in while she was still yelling at me, and she tried to follow me inside, but I shut the door in her face and told her to leave because I was seriously upset and I didn't want to interact with her anymore. She argued with me, but I told her that I would call the police, and that's when she finally left, but not before she cursed me out and said that I would face the consequences of this soon. I don't know what that means. I'm not even interested in getting to know what that means. I just want to relax and move on with my life. Update 4. Hello. It's been 26 days since the accident, and my family finally had some good news to share with everyone today. Obviously, they didn't tell me about it personally. I found out from my cousins. But the good news is that my brother is finally showing signs of improvement. He's no longer in a coma and is responding better, so that's a positive sign. I truly hope he's able to make it and that he just keeps improving from this point onward, because the last month has been very stressful for everyone as a family, including me, despite the fact that I'm not even part of the family anymore and have been cast out long ago. But the way my parents have been after my life in the past 26 days, that's really shown me that they are unhinged, and I think they were just taking out their frustration on me. After my last interaction with my mother, which I had talked about in my last update, I didn't hear from her for a couple of days. But then my father called me to lecture me instead. He used a different number than the one he usually uses, so I wasn't able to tell it was him, and when I answered the call, he started yelling at me almost immediately so that I wouldn't even have time to hang up when I realized it was him. He was very clever about it too. He tried to catch me off guard so that he would have the opportunity to scream at me. Instead of calling me at any normal time during the day, he decided to call me at 5 in the morning when he knew I would be sleeping and would have to wake up to answer his call, and my brain would be all foggy. So a couple of days after my interaction with my mother, my dad called me at 5 in the morning, and after almost 3 phone calls, I finally answered the 4th one, and he immediately started yelling at me about what an ungrateful child I was and how he was wishing that I had never been born. He said that he was going to make sure the rest of the family never spoke to me again because I was a terrible human being for not even bothering to come to see my brother in the hospital when he was suffering so much and not being there for the family. After ranting for almost 5 minutes, he was the one who hung up because I was still trying to process everything that was going on, and by the time I was done with that, he had hung up the phone and blocked me. At the time when it had happened, it was not very funny, but then now I find it pretty amusing because my parents are just so desperate to make me seem like a bad guy and yell at me for arbitrary things. They are willing to go out of their way to such extremes just for these reasons. I've already said that I believe that they were taking out their frustration on me. They just needed a scapegoat, and as usual, I had to be there for the family. But it's fine because my father could not succeed in turning the rest of the family against me because they know that I'm not wrong, and they also know what happened 5 years ago. Anyway, now that my brother's condition is improving, I just hope that they get off my back and just focus on him. Update 5. Hello. It's so strange to return here after almost 3 years. So much has happened since then, and it's mostly been for the better. I now live in Germany for work. I've been here for the past year and a half. I've also started seeing someone. My girlfriend and I have been together for the past 8 months, and it's been truly blissful. And in the past 3 years, I've had absolutely no contact with my family, and that's also been wonderful, if I'm being honest. I have kept in touch with my relatives, the ones who are nice to me, so that's different. My brother is completely fine now. He survived the accident, and even though it took him a long time to return to normal, he's doing okay now. Karen approached me after my brother started recovering to talk to me and apologize for everything that had happened in the past. But I just told her that at this point, an apology wasn't really necessary. She had approached me after everyone learned I was moving to Germany for work and had visited me with a bouquet to apologize on behalf of both her and my brother. My brother couldn't come to see me because he was too ashamed of what had happened 8 years back. But honestly, none of it mattered anymore. So I just told them I forgave them and didn't even care. And that part was true. I truly didn't care because I was moving on with my life to better things. Since then, I've been here, and my parents don't speak to me anymore. And I'm genuinely happy about that because I would not let that ever happen again under any circumstances. I'm finally happy now. Anyway, now that you're all caught up, I'd better get back to my life. Thank you so much to the people who showed me so much love and concern when I was posting here, and also continued to ask about me in the comments and stuff even after I had stopped posting.